So we'll just jump in right away into our webinar, Empowering Consumer Insights and Connecting Empathy and AI for Impact. So who we are, welcome from our side. My name is Zander. I'm an innovation researcher here at HYVE. I've been with HYVE for 14 years now, working in the consumer insights and co-creation team. And my main focus is on consumer insights. So I also like to see myself as an insight detective. I'm incredibly passionate about exploring consumer needs, what drive consumers, what are their pains points, what they wish for, and also transfer this knowledge and these insights to clients and really assisting them in the innovation process. And that's why I'm really excited to be able to be here today and talk to you about consumer insights, the power of consumer insights, how we can use them in a better and more meaningful way. And I also didn't come alone. I brought my colleague Markus, who will talk about the AI part of our webinar.
Yes, exactly. Also, a warm welcome from my side. My name is Markus. I am an innovation consultant associate at HYVE, and I'm also together with Laura in a team of consumer insights and co-creation. And yeah, I've got a background in innovation management, so I have a master's degree there. And at HYVE, I focus on user-centric research. So, for example, conducting lots of interviews, expert interviews, user interviews, also a lot of technology and trend scouting. And I have a really great passion for AI. And I'm really looking forward to this webinar with you today.
Wonderful. So maybe before we jump into our topics, we would just like to share a little bit about who we are and what drives us. So maybe there are some of you here today as participants who don't know HYVE yet. So HYVE is an innovation agency. We are part of the Quest Group based in Munich. And as you can see, our vision is together we innovate for a desirable future. So what we do is together with our clients, we really want to craft exciting visions. We are working on exciting ideas of the future and really working on turning them into growth. And what drives us and what makes us special is, for one, the relationships. So we are an interdisciplinary team, everybody connected in one agency. So what we are proud of is that if we have our clients, they don't have to run to multiple agencies depending where they are in the innovation process, but they can just do everything in one agency with us. We have our product designers, we have our researchers, we have our AI experts, and many more. And this is just, part of our DNA since the beginning of HYVE. Also, I mentioned it, innovation, this drives us every day. So we can do it through actionable innovation, roadmaps, strategic foresight, customer-centric services, physical or digital products. We really want to explore and empower the new. And this is what drives us every day, what is important for us and also connects us in our passion for innovation. Desirable, it has one term with two meanings: desirability, the human centricity, and also desirable future. So really innovating for a world we want to live in. And last but not least, future. It's really essential, exploring and empowering the new, and also being open to experiment with topics like AI. You can see it in our webinar now, and also VR. And of course, we are not doing this all by ourselves. So one of the biggest advantages is that we have many partners. We have our core team, but we work with our different startups, with different clients from different industries, national, international ones. We have cooperations with the university and also different external partners who can support us and our clients during the innovation process. Yes, let's look at our agenda for today. So first, we'll start to talk a little bit about the importance and strengths of consumer insights. I already mentioned it. what makes an insight powerful, what kind of consumer insights are there, what is a consumer insight, and also, how you can get the best results through which methods. And then later on, we will look at the whole topic of insights in the age of AI, and also at the future of consumer insights, what the future of consumer insights can look like in our opinion. And in the end, there will be the opportunity for a Q&A session. So just write us our questions. We will try to answer as many of them as possible, but also afterwards, you're welcome to write us an email or get in touch with us over LinkedIn so we can really make sure to answer all of your questions. Yes. Let's start with the importance and strengths of consumer insights. And when we were working on this webinar, we really thought about the topic, and okay, what does it mean for us and what we think about it? And we came up with a hypothesis, and we would like to share that with you and, just let it sink in. Also think about it throughout our webinar. And yes, you can also share with us your opinion, what you think, how you understand it. And what we were thinking it is AI can record a story. So it can record it, writing it, putting it together, but only humans can truly understand it. So only humans have this emotional understanding to it. And this will be the hypothesis that we will look at throughout our webinar in our different chapters. And yes, we're really interested to also hear how you think about this sentence. Let's start with the definition of consumer insights. So what is a consumer insight? And there is no one definition. There are multiple definitions, so every agency may have a different way of defining consumer insights. And what we like to use at HYVE is, or for orientation, is the definition of Moham Birsani. So consumer insight is a fresh understanding, but not obvious, about consumers' beliefs, values, habits, motives, emotions, and needs that can be translated into competitive advantage. So really understanding what consumers are thinking, what drives them, what are problems they are facing, and using these insights to make for our clients a competitive advantage, something that they can work with. Now let's look at a different type of insights, and this is really important to get a comprehensive understanding on consumers. So let's start with our typical data sources. So we have the quantitative part, the what, quantitative insight derived from numerical data and statistical analysis. And then we have the qualitative insight, the why. And this is what we get through exploratory non-numerical methods, focusing on understanding consumers' emotions and their experiences. And then we get different types of insights. So those are the four most common that we work with. We once have the behavioral insight. And the behavioral insight is focusing on understanding and analyzing the actions, habits, and the decision-making processes of consumers. And we really want to uncover not just what they say, but what they do. And this helps us to identify patterns or also certain triggers that we have in consumer behavior. And to show you an example is, for example, when we have online shoppers. And those online shoppers tend to abandon their carts when they realize that they are confronted with unexpected shipping costs, and these are added during checkout. And this indicates to us that the transparency around pricing is a key factor in completing the purchase. So this would be a behavioral insight. Then we have the psychographic insights. And here we are looking at the psychological and emotional factors that drive consumer behavior. So including values, lifestyle, interests, beliefs. And an example here would be like, okay, thinking about millennials, millennial consumers, they value experiences over material possessions. Why? Because they are seeking products that or services that provide them with adventure with self-expression and personal growth. So this would be a psychographic insight. We have cultural insights, where we focus on understanding how society or cultural environmental factors influence the consumers, their attitudes, their behaviors, and also their preferences. And an example here can be that we see that in many Western cultures, there is a growing emphasis on sustainability and on environmental responsibility. And what we can see that consumers are increasingly expecting a brand to adopt these eco-friendly practices and to align with these values. This would be a cultural insight. And then we have the market insights, and they focus on understanding the external environment, including industry trends, competitive behavior, looking at the market dynamics, and how that influences consumer behavior and also business opportunities. So an example here would be, okay, the demand for plant-based food production, is rapidly increasing, and the global plant-based food market is expected to grow, I don't know how many percent. And we can say that health-conscious consumers are driving this trend. This would be a typical market insight. And then, of course, we can also have or add specific user group insights. So this would be if we want to focus on certain gender or certain age groups. Now we looked at the definition of insights, but also, okay, what different types of insights are there. So it's also important to look what are the characteristics of an insight. What are the most important one? And also here we have the situation that different agency may, favor different characteristics. And we thought about this topic, and these are the most important ones from our perspective. First of all, the empathy, to have this emotional connection, very important. The inspiration to really get this magical sparkle within insight. The depth through design, so really having this inside graphic, inside picture that comes along with an insight. The strategical value is very important also. To have the connection to user behavior. To have an insight that is actionable, so you can use it right away. You can start working on it the minute you get it. That the insight is credible, you can validate it. That you have a certain detail of understanding, and also the magnitude and relevance. It has to be relevant. Those are all important characteristics of insights. Since unfortunately we don't have the time to go through everything, we thought about, okay, for us, what are the most important insights? What's really, the foundation, and what makes an insight in if you have to put it into a nutshell, a powerful insight. And this is the empathy, the inspiration, the depth to design, and the strategic value. And this is what we will look at in the next slides. So looking at what makes an insight strong, how do you get strong insights? And the first topic is empathy. So our mission is to uncover the emotional connection that drives user behavior. And here, I mentioned it before, we see it as our roles, or my role as well, to be like this insight detective. So taking out our magnifying glasses and really tracking the leads and hints that lead us to the golden nuggets. And this means we are not just satisfied with the first results that we are getting, what we read. No, it means we are scraping off layer after layer, going deeper and deeper into the topic, into the world of the consumers, reading between the lines, and trying to find the gems, of information, those snippets that really make a strong insight in all those other stones, and in all those other information. And what is a tool that really helps us to get there? And this is empathy. Because through empathy, we lay the foundation for a powerful insight. And how can we use empathy to get there? And one way is to really try to step into the user's shoes. And we had a workshop where we did an activity where different kinds of shoes were laid in front of the participants. And then at a certain signal, everybody just had to grab some shoes. And as life works, you never know what you get. So maybe you got the perfect pair, but maybe you got some that are too big, too small. And then you had to run a certain, amount. And this was when the participants us really realized, like, okay, this may be hurting, we are feeling the pain of the users when something, doesn't fit perfectly, or we are super happy because it's just a perfect experience. And this was a great way to try to step into the user's shoes, to really have this experience, which really helped them to go this next step through empathy, because we had this connection. And getting an emotional connection with the user is also quite essential. For example, let's pick a method. If we are in an interview situation, and a lot of time we face the situation that we start an interview and then you realize, it's not their fault, but you have some users who are like people pleasers. They will say what you want to hear. But this is not our mission, we want to get to the bottom of it. So you really have to use empathy to get the information you want, the information, these gold nuggets. And we have this nice example when it comes, for example, to the topic of baby diapers. And probably every one of you already saw an advertisement in the TV, saying, oh, we have these diapers and they are having extra protection. There is no leaking and your baby angel can sleep through the night. And the first thought is, okay, it makes sense. Parents want to have a product where their child feel comfortable, their little angels can sleep through the night. But if you have this one-on-one situation, you can really get this emotional connection with the user, and you are not just, satisfied with what they said at first glance. You get deeper, you see, oh, wow, there's another motivation behind it. And this motivation is something that parents may be reluctant to share at first because, oh, what if they think we are bad parents? But it's, if my baby sleeps through the night, it means I have a couple of hours for myself. I can also get some sleep or have some me time or whatever. So there is this other reasoning behind, which is so important to also get that an insight and knowledge that we can then use if you are developing services, products. And this is a really great example to see if you get this emotional connection with the user, you can go deeper and you discover completely new ways of how users think, what are their problems, or what drives them to buy a certain product. And the empathy is like, with it, it's the foundation. So one thing leads to another. What makes an insight also strong is the inspiration. An insight is strong when it has the power to inspire, to tell a story, and trigger certain actions. For example, to motivation to get an action. So you don't need your second, third, or fourth coffee to be creative. No, you see or hear about this insight and you are, let's get to work right away. You're curious about more. It's like you're reading an interesting book or see an interesting movie. You want to know how it ends, what's going on. It also helps you to get an emotional connection to your consumers, to really they're not something abstract. Okay, you're working to make something for them. No, you get this emotional connection. You care. And also breaking existing thought patterns. So many of us maybe had the situation, you are in a workshop and then you get out of the workshop and you think you have the most genius idea and everybody's on board. Great, winner. And then you realize, okay, maybe the data is not validating it. Maybe there are other points that are more important. And if we have a strong insight that inspires it, it's not something that, breaks the spirit. It's something that helps you break existing thought patterns and makes you feeling excited about to work on it. And this is what we really want to achieve with a strong insight. And as I mentioned before, there is also this design aspect. So inside pictures, inside graphics, the depth through design. What do we need in an inside picture, inside graphic? It needs to be multifaceted. It needs to be rich in detail, recognizing the interconnection. Creating depth and understanding through inside pictures and storytelling is really important with strong insights. And you can see it, maybe you have been in this situation, like in this picture. You are in an art gallery, a museum, and you see wonderful masterworks of art. And you sit there and you are absolutely captured by them. You see the little details, the little stories. You're inspired to think about it. What can happen there? You're making your own conclusions. And this is a feeling that you get with strong insights when you have these insight pictures. This is where you want to be, in this feeling, this magical sparkle that I mentioned before. And you need these pictures also besides the information. And we would like to show you some example of how you can achieve this. It can be through sketches. It can be through pictures that show different worlds, where you can dive right in. You can see, the little details. It can be something like busy pictures. In German, you say, maybe some of you know the Wimmelbild, where you can really look at the little details, creating a story, working with storytelling and making them really powerful. And as I said, there is, of course, the strong strategical part to it. So, one of the problems we are faced with, and probably many companies are faced with, that consumer insights are not found to be so important. So, when there are limited resources, money wise, time wise, often hear, well, can't we just skip this part? We had our intern Ian who did this a couple of years ago, so we have our research. This is what we hear. And then we have to tell, no, this often means game over. It's like the consumer insights are your foundation for your house. Imagine you have your foundation, and if you don't have a strong foundation, there may be a storm. And we know in the business world, in the markets, you can have some storms, and everything is swept away, your whole work, because you don't have the strong foundation. So it's really worth it. It's so important to have the strong foundation of consumer insights. And if you have powerful insights, you get the persuasiveness. You get the storytelling aspect, You get the user centricity. And relying on the power of insights leads you to being able to use them as a strategic weapon and compass. So it helps you to solve problems, to uncover opportunities for innovation, to stay customer centric and agile, and to innovate effectively. And we would like to show this aspects to you in one of the success stories. And it's the success stories of Cow. So all of the different aspects that I talked about, going into our mission to dig deeper and deeper, to work through empathy, trying to understand users, to have the inspiration here, as you can see, the graphic part, and also working with a strategic value is what makes this success story. And we're at the company Cow, coming to us during Corona times. And the problem was, okay, they are working with hair salons, and what kind of influence does the Corona time have on the hair salons? What to do? How do we work with this new world? So what we did was a social media exploration. So we really went deep into communities, forums, name it, and looked at what consumers are saying and thinking. And we just, we said, okay, maybe we have to look at the broader aspects, not just look at the context of hair salons, but also trying to understand this new world of consumers, what really drives them. And this is one of the insights which was incredibly interesting and really gave an added value to this whole topic and project. So what we can see here is that we found 3 different user groups in this new pandemic situation. I would like to share those with you. We have on the left side, we have our safety maximizer. Let's call him Sam. Sam, the safety maximizer. And as you can see, our safety maximizer is minimizing all the risks that he has. He wants to be sure he does not get infected at all costs, even if it means restricting himself and lowering his life quality. So you see, you have the little house, you have a double bubble, you have the quarantine tent in front of it, you have the hand sanitizer, all the measures. You really see the double protective gear he has on, and he even disinfects the food delivery. This is no joke, actually. So this is really one of our groups. You have to take this into account. Then you have the rationalists. Let's call her Ruby. Ruby the rationalist. And she's adjusting her behavior regarding the pandemic as she sees it fit. So she's still working, she's still living her life, informing herself, what can I do? I have the warm bubble around the house. And she's still shopping, living her life, but she's cautious. And then you have the corona denier. Let's call him Dennis. So Dennis, the corona denier, and he doesn't recognize anything at all. The seriousness of the disease, he doesn't, follow any measures. He's like, my body, my choice. I don't keep to anything. So it's also a problem. What if we have corona denier Dennis wanting to go to a hair salon? So this was really important to show these changes in general consumer behavior, and that these corona changes inevitably lead to new customer expectations for the hairdressers, And if the hairdressers want to prevail, they need to have they need to use new measures into their salon. They need to implement new measures that really please these different user groups. If they don't do it, they will be avoided. So in what was here important from the strategic viewpoint was, in order to offer hairdressers an innovative and helpful hygiene concept, it was fundamental to get this in-depth understanding of consumer needs. And this was the only way also for Kao to develop these tailor-made solutions. And with these insights, with these strong insights, this is one of them, Kao was able to really thoroughly understand the impact of the coronavirus on the industry, on the consumers, and keeping the innovation strategy on track. So this is a really nice example of how a powerful insight can help companies. So you might think now, okay, how do we get these best results? And we would always recommend like this cross method approach. Of course, there is the possibility also you have one method and you get great results. But the best insights are, when we combine different methods. For example, the qual and quant part, the what and the why, it's a little hard. This is what really creates great results. We have the different methods, social media exploration, interviews in person or remote. We have the online research communities, more quant into the quant direction, the interactive surveys, user testing, many more. And it's really is like a mix and match situation. And this is where we also come into play to help our clients or anybody interested to find their own success story and to find those methods that works for them, and to really mix and match. We can have a social media exploration, then an org, and then a user testing. Or we start with social media exploration, then have an user testing. So it can be really a mix and match situation. There we see our responsibility to help our clients. And maybe you are thinking now, okay, this sounds just marvelous, but where are the barriers? There have to be barriers. And yes, we are faced with current barriers, of course. One of the topics is the limited resources, time limits, working on multiple markets at the same time, costs. These often pose as a barrier in today's world. And then we also have the topic of AI, is AI something that we can work at? Is it something that may, will be a barrier for our role as researchers, or just, the solution? So what we also thought about, and I think this is a really important topic in today's world, is how can we tackle these barriers as researchers and make insights even more effective and go with time. And this is where, we would like to jump into our AI part, and I will hand over the word to Markus.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. So thank you very much, Laura, for this very inspirational first part of the webinar. And I would say, let's jump right into the part of AI. So insights in the age of AI. And yeah, so the basic question that we can ask ourselves at the beginning is, where can AI support research today? And for this question, we can actually divide the research process into two main areas. I mean, first of all, we have the key area data to insights on the left-hand side. And then we also have insights to action on the right-hand side. And there we have several use cases now. So first of all, let's talk about data to insights. So as you can see, we have the point of data collection and pre-processing. And this means that, for example, yeah, we can use AI to, for example, create transcripts, of course. And then there's also the point of social media listening and trend detection. When we think about social media listening, we can use AI to scan millions of posts, for example, or user contributions online or in specific forums. So there's a lot of possibilities, and also in the domain of trend detection. So this means we can use the efficiency and speed and scale of AI to analyze patterns, for example, or startup news or pilot projects. So there's endless possibilities. Then we also have to take into consideration the part of survey optimization. So this means that, of course, we have the goal to make questionnaires more efficient, more relevant, and also more user-friendly. So we could use AI in this context, for example, to do an AI-assisted wording, for example. So to use AI to formulate clearer and more understandable questions. And then we also can do an A/B testing of the question. So for example, try out different formulations, and then we can let AI recommend us what yields, for example, the most reliable data. Exactly. And last but not least, on this part is also the part of text analysis and pattern recognition. So this means basically we can use AI for auto clustering or also for identifying cross-market themes. All right. Then let's take a look at the right hand side, insights to action. So basically the application of insights. First of all, we have to speak about empathy. Empathy through AI powered visualization and storytelling. So what do we mean with that? Of course, um, this is something where we can use AI to really trigger empathy in stakeholders, in our stakeholders, by, for example, making visuals even more immersive, or to also use, for example, interactive charts. Then also what's really important here is the topic of easy availability and also usability. So of course, we actually see there a challenge right now because sometimes insights are hard to discover in the organization. And this means we can use AI, for example, to create a chatbot so that employees, for example, can chat with insights. This would also be a possible use case. And also on this side, last but not least, targeted insight sharing. So this means we could create instant AI summaries and tailor those summaries for specific stakeholder groups, for example, and also for specific audiences. This is also where we can use the support of AI. So now we've seen actually that there is a lot of potential where I can support. Let's explore the limitations. So the question is, what actually sets us apart from AI? Where do we differ? And for this, the keyword actually is empathy here also. So let's take a look at the question why we are currently more empathetic than AI. And this can be divided also into three pillars. First of all, let's talk about emotional intelligence. And also, let's, for example, use the case of conducting interviews. So, for example, user interviews, expert interviews. So AI right now lacks emotional intelligence. So AI struggles with, for example, perceiving or interpreting pauses, tone changes, and also emotional drivers. So, for example, shame, pride, or irony or sarcasm. And also, those cultural nuances are really important because they're often overlooked or underrepresented by AI. Then the next point that we can take a look at is curiosity and also depth and exploration. So right now, AI just lacks this kind of curiosity that defines us as humans. So AI rarely asks spontaneous follow-up questions, for example, or AI cannot just shift its approach empathetically based on the interviewee's character, for example, or also the responses the AI gets. And here we as researchers come into play because we can explore hypotheses really in the moment and adapt very seamlessly to the dynamics of a conversation. So we have a lot more flexibility to adapt on the go. And that's also very key here. And last but not least, the topic of trust is also something we have to talk about because AI doesn't have trust in high stakes conversations. So it's really hard for AI to build, for example, genuine trust, in those conversations, if we take a look at AI moderated interviews, they can be valuable for low stakes structure questions. There will be some responses that are valuable, but there are, of course, limitations, and especially in sensitive topics. So if we speak, for example, about health, about identity or finances, so trust is really key here, and that's where we as humans, we as human researchers make a difference. And also we have to be aware of course, misinterpretations. If we think about the use case that AI is going to conduct an interview, there can be misinterpretations, and those misinterpretations can, of course, lead to follow-up mistakes that stick throughout the research process. So it's really critical here that, yeah, we consider the human in the loop element. So we as human researchers, so that we do regular check-ins, for example, and also to ensure the accuracy. So we just saw that we can combine now the strength of both AI and also humans, and that impact can be transformative. But the question is, what really does this kind of ideal collaboration between AI and also humans in the research process looks like? And that's the question we're going to take a look at the next slide. So the question is, how can insights and AI can go hand in hand? And as you already can see, the main key takeaway here is that it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. So let's stick with the example of conducting interviews. So just imagine we just conducted 20 user interviews across several international markets, and we have a Teams recording of those interviews. Now, the first step is that AI can support us in the transcription, for example. So we can work with these transcripts in, for example, a secure and AI-powered chat, where we can easily upload the sensitive data where it's secure, and we can use a first prompt, so an instruction entered into the AI. So we can basically ask AI to create initial clusters for us. So identifying recurring themes to structure all the information, this vast data input. And then the AI gives us an output. AI supports us. And now we as human researchers really have to step in. We have to validate, we have to interpret, and also contextualize the output, which are the clusters. And yeah, it's most likely that we're not satisfied in the beginning with those clusters yet. And why is that? Well, AI often misses really critical nuances in this process because we also have to take into account, for example, in the interviews, when was a statement made, or who said it, or how often did it occur, or what was the context and the intention behind it. And yeah, sometimes problems may not be addressed sharply enough, or the context may not be precise enough. And this is exactly where we as researchers have to review the content, have to review the clusters again, if they are accurate, and also if the weighting of those statements is appropriately. And yeah, of course, if adjustments are needed, we can do a follow-up prompt. So we can just tell AI to refine the clusters, to add, for example, missing information, or also to address, from our point of view, underrepresented themes. And if necessary, I mean, we can also dive back into the transcripts, into the recordings for a deeper validation here. So the main key takeaway is that the process is iterative. So the better we understand our craft as human researchers, the better we also can instruct AI and leverage the capabilities of AI. So in the end, it's really the combined output of this human expertise and also the efficiency of AI that AI brings to the table that can feed directly into the decision making. Exactly. And yeah, with all this added value that AI can add to the process, of course, it also brings us a lot more responsibility, as we just saw. So we have to talk about ensuring quality and also building trust. And this brings us to the next topic that we want to talk about. And this is, how can we ensure the reliability in AI-powered insights? So as we just saw, there are some limitations to AI-generated outputs. First of all, there can be inaccuracy. So for example, large language models, LLMs, they can provide incorrect answers. But what's really interesting here, they can sound actually very confident when bringing up incorrect answers. So we have to pay attention. And also there can be hallucinations. You've probably also heard of that. For example, let's take the interview use case as an example. If we want to find, for example, a quote about a specific pain point in the interviews from our interview partner, then we can ask AI to find us such a quote that might be fitting, and AI can also deliver us such a quote. And yeah, it can fit quite well, but if we take a look at the transcript, we might also see that this statement actually doesn't appear in the transcript. So that's a basic hallucination here. Then also we have to talk about the topic of bias. So of course, large language models can be biased because they have been trained with a certain data they were built on, but we should also not forget that we as humans are always a bit biased. Then another important topic here is the explainability. So sometimes we cannot be 100% sure how the input data is really used, how it is processed. It can be unclear, and it can also lack transparency. And last but not least, the operator, so the researcher, has a very, very high impact actually on the output of the AI, because of course, as we saw before, we can do prompting, we can also, in a negative example, generate an ineffective prompt, and then of course, this can negatively impact the quality of the AI generated output. But the really good message here is, the good news is that we can address these limitations. We can, yeah, kind of reduce them, minimize them, because we, as the operator, we can, of course, carefully select which kind of input data that we want to use. So ensure that the AI really works with accurate and relevant sources. And we can also, yeah, request from AI that AI should give us or provide us references or citations to validate also the outputs. We could also use, for example, custom tools or solutions, so build our own solutions to really leverage the potential of AI and to tailor it to our specific use cases. And of course, also the bias can be minimized. For example, if we're still talking about the interviews, let's imagine we want to create a visual of personas based on the interview information. Then, of course, we can request AI to give us some images, but we can request it also to give us multiple variations to reduce the bias in the representation. So that's also something we can do. And the probably most important part is really that we have to apply critical thinking. So you saw it before in the research process, we have to build in checkpoints, so to say, to really validate outputs repeatedly. And yeah, this is really, really key here. And if we achieve this and actually use our critical thinking effectively, we can create value, not just on one dimension, but actually on 3 dimensions. And that's where we're going to take a look at the next slide. So as you can see, there are basically 3 metrics here: time to insight, the depth level, and also the stakeholder adoption. So let's start with time to insight. Well, with AI, we can partially automate steps in the research process, like, for example, tedious tasks like the transcription or also the initial clustering, and that saves us some valuable time. And we can use that valuable time to actually dive deeper into the emotional drivers, also into the motivations, into the cultural nuances. And we can read between the lines, as also Laura mentioned earlier. So we can get stronger and also more impactful insights. So that brings us, a much bigger depth level. And then also the stakeholder adoption is an important point to mention, because we can also enhance the stakeholder adoption, because we can use AI to produce really immersive visualizations, a good storytelling to make the insights a lot more easier to share, for example, and also, as a consequence, more impactful for decision makers. So you can see that the insights can be better democratized across the organization, and also teams can align more quickly and then also accelerate their decision making. So now we have one final critical question, and that's also kind of what's the conclusion, and of course, what does the future of insights look like? And as you can see, there are 5 points that we want to talk about right here. First of all, insights as a strategic lever. So this is basically also what Laura told us in the beginning of the webinar. Insights really are a key element for gaining understanding, for making strategic decisions, also for creating competitive advantages in the end. Then we have to talk about the role of researchers, because we can see the researchers as AI prompt designers now. Of course, the roles are evolving, but what really stays the same is the core value of empathy and also of curiosity. And of course, there will be also the skill of prompting, and also the critical reflection that I just talked about is gaining a lot more importance here. Then, of course, what we're going to see, point 3, is next-gen tools. So yeah, we will see next-gen tools that are going to accelerate also the insights, because we're in the age of big data. We will see a lot more autonomous agents in the future. We will see also intelligent real-time dashboards, a lot more for example, trend research, for social media listening, or other applications. And then, of course, with technology, what goes hand in hand is the immersive insight experience. So we will see also, together with virtual reality, with augmented reality, a lot more interactive simulations. For example, also a lot more AI avatars. And those kind of experiences, they make the insights, of course, more tangible also for stakeholders. Exactly. And then let's talk about the last point here, point 5, humans and AI better together. And yeah, this is basically a point where the human researcher remains indispensable. So what really sets us apart is that we have the ability to really live empathy during data collection, so during interviews, for example, but also during the analysis. So we can really read between the lines, we can see key connections, we can also uncover the golden nuggets Laura told us about that AI might overlook. Yeah. So in this data-rich world, it's really tempting to automate everything, but the most powerful insights, they come when we can combine really the speed and the scale of AI together with our human curiosity and empathy. And this is exactly what we do at HYVE and what brings us a lot of joy. And speaking of joy, we now look forward to all of your questions that you have written in the chat. You can also add more questions right now. We're happy to answer them. And at this point, we already want to thank you for your attention right now and also the participation. So let's take some looks into the Q&A session. So let us just see what we have here in the chat. Exactly. So yeah, one question I can see right now is if we have got tips for effective prompts in the research process. And yeah, that's actually a really valuable question right here. So I think I could talk about for hours about this question alone. What's really important, of course, is to refine the prompt to improve the output. So of course, it's really important to, for example, assign a role to AI. So for example, you are a researcher, or also you are an expert in XYZ. Yeah, and you also, of course, always have to define a clear task, what the AI should do and what the AI shouldn't do. So, for example, to make the AI analyze pain points in the transcript for a certain area. And also, it's important to add as much context as possible to make it as specific as possible. So you could add also some examples how also the output then should look like. So in terms of structuring the output, if you want to have bullet points, if you want to have bold highlights, for example, or if you want to have it in the form of an executive summary format. And yeah, that's also important. Of course, you could also ask AI to write a prompt for you. That's also a kind of cheat code, I think, something that you can also try out. And one more tip, like if you're specifically analyzing, for example, an interview transcript, what I always do is also to attach the interview guideline, because then I have where the AI knows exactly how I performed or conducted the interview, and then the AI has a good idea of how I want also the summary to be structured. So this would be a point I would add here also. So this would be some tips for effective prompts. Yeah.
Yes, I also saw here that there is one question concerning insights. Yay. What are the most common mistakes companies make when working with insights? Okay, from our experience, I think I already hinted a little bit into this direction. I think when it is not clear how important insights are, this foundation, then we often see that insights are not utilized strategically and they remain unused. So even if somebody is, working or we are doing a research project and we are having great insights, sometimes it really happens that in the end, they also maybe shifts in the direction, the strategy, etc., that they remain unused. And this is basically very unfortunate. Also, sometimes due to, time pressure or other topics, there may be a focus on short-term data instead of long-term learnings. This can also be a mistake. And yeah, generally, really, I think the biggest mistake is the lack of integration of insights into the decision-making process. So not being clear about the role of insights and why they are important and then just, skipping them altogether or having them and saying, no, rather we go into another direction and then, not taking them into this decision-making process. I think that's a relatively common mistake, but yeah, pretty unfortunate, I would say. Yeah. Is there I think another AI question.
Yes, exactly. So, how can we ensure we don't lose our empathy when working with AI? So I think that's actually a really nice question because it kind of turns the tables. So let me think of that. Yeah, I think what's really important when working with AI is that you use it consciously so that you are aware when you use AI and when you also specifically don't use AI. I think that helps a lot. I mean, we also recently, some weeks ago, had a really nice workshop with a client. And yeah, the workshop was physical. So the people didn't have access to their laptop or their smartphones. And it was really good because we did a really creative session. And then they came up with a lot of creative ideas and also a lot of details to this creative ideas. And I think if you would have asked AI in this context, it would not have come up with such detailed or granular details in the creative work, in the brainstorming session. So I think it really helps to yeah, also insert really sessions where you specifically don't use AI. So just that you are aware when you use it, when you don't use it. And also I think it's important to also promote like a really curious company culture. And of course, also, yeah, do some training sessions, like we said before, to really think critically about the output. And I think that should help a lot. And I think then we also don't lose our empathy when working with AI. Exactly. Okay, let's see if we can take one last question, maybe. Yes, all right. So there's also actually one question we also had in the beginning of the webinar. It's about the tools that we can recommend. So yeah, this is also yeah, good question. Yeah, so basically we have to really yeah, take or split it into two ways. First of all, when we talk about tools for insight generation, then actually we've tried out a lot of tools on the market right now, but we are a little bit, yeah, we're not satisfied with the results actually. So that's why we have built or we have worked with our own team of AI developers to also come up with a tailored solution that really fits our use case, where we train the AI to generate insights really specific to our workflow and also our requirements. So that helps us a lot. And the advantage, of course, also is that we are in full control over security standards and also can process sensitive data. And if we also take a look at the storytelling, so the immersive part that we talked about to make insights also more applicable, more immersive. Then what we work a lot with is, for image generation, for video generation, Midjourney, for example, of course, or the, Sora from OpenAI for visuals also. Then, of course, we can go into a lot more different dimensions, like also audio. So, for example, 11 Labs for audio synthesis is also a quite valuable tool. Or if you wanted to, for example, generate AI avatars, then HN is also a really good tool that you can try out. Exactly. So I think more questions we can also answer maybe later, or of course you can always contact us if you have more questions, because we still have to make an announcement in the end. Exactly. So this would be actually another really interesting webinar that we want to show you. So the webinar is called From Idea to Impact Master Prompting with Lessons from the Promptathon. It will be on September 30. There will be 2 sessions with Niklas and Lennart. One session at 10 a.m. in German and also one session at 4 p.m. in English. And it will be about Promptathon use cases. So you will learn or get a lot of insights about the prompting workshops that we had. So a lot of our experience we can share here, also about sprints and also real world business challenges. And you will also get resources and frameworks that are really valuable. So this is a total recommendation from us. You can register for free by scanning the QR codes, but you can also, of course, visit our website to register there. And so much for that. Then I would say the last minute, maybe let's use it to show you, of course, also our contact information. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, of course, you can also scan the QR code to access our HYVE newsletter, our innovation updates. And also you will find Laura's LinkedIn right there and also my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect. We're really happy to exchange here, to have a fruitful discussion. Also, if you have more questions that we weren't able to answer right now, you can always write us a message or connect with us. And so much for that. I think it was a really nice webinar today. And we wish you all the best. I hope you learned a lot today. And I would say see you in the next webinar.
Yes, and hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Perfect. See you and thank you.